there is a moniker, Defund the Police. The moniker Defund the Police was never to say, let's take money away from the police, the job that the police needs to do to keep communities safe and somehow get rid of them. That was never the case. The case was always take the monies away that would normally go for whenever, instead of a cop going to take care of a mental issue, we send people experienced to do the mental issue. You have a family crisis, we send people capable of handling family crises. That is what defund was all about. It was a moniker like that. That's exactly what it means. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted to use that as, oh, get rid of the cops. I want you to listen to what Jasmine Crocker has to say, because she's going to be the next congresswoman from the Dallas area, and she understands the material, no spin, what it's all supposed to be. They're going to talk about crime rates and a bit more. So check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Republicans are resorting to their tried and true method of fear-mongering and race baiting by focusing on crime. Take a listen.
Meet Mandela Barnes, a different kind of Democrat. So different, his heroes?
People like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar.
They support ending cash bail, putting criminals back on the street. So does Mandela Barnes. He wrote the bill, said courts could not rely on the nature, number, or gravity of crimes to keep someone behind bars, releasing dangerous criminals into our communities. Mandela Barnes, a different Democrat, a dangerous Democrat.
A different kind of Democrat. Now, what the ad is truly saying is that Mandela Barnes would be Wisconsin's first black senator. So it's not necessarily a dog whistle we hear. That sounds more like a bullhorn to me. Joining me now, as you can see, we were already into the conversation, Texas State Representative, civil rights attorney, and candidate for Congress, Jasmine Crockett, and political strategist, Lucy Caldwell, both here with me on set. I am really happy to have you ladies here. The New York Times piece pointing out that Republicans are intensifying their focus on crime and public safety, but they're vague on specific policy details. They see the issue as one that can motivate their conservative base. I'm just curious, will the idea of fear, of lawlessness work for the GOP, especially considering, Lucy, they are committing actual crimes that we see playing out before the country right now? I mean, I think we need to keep playing January 6th video and all the denier BS on a loop long after midterms, just to remind people who the crime committers are.
Well, I think that's true, but I think that one of the reasons that the crime issue is the one that they're clinging to is it is one, whether it's real or not, perception is reality for voters, and it's something that people feel in their communities. People in their communities don't feel January 6th. They don't feel the threat to our democracy. And there's another big elephant in the room for Republicans ahead of the midterms, which is the abortion issue, which they are all running away from as fast as they can. Why is that issue so potent? Why is that issue so powerful for non-nut job candidates? It's potent because it resonates with people's lived experiences. So I would say that Republicans' pivot to crime, whether genuine or not, is an attempt to react to that potency so that they can say, hey, we too are trying to talk about an issue that affects your daily lives.
Yeah, that's a really good point. This is why I love having you on the show, because you're making good points. That because I think those of us in the Beltway, we consume the minutia of it all the time. You know, we read 5 and 6 papers every morning, but when you're at home, you know, having your coffee with your family, you're not necessarily talking about January 6th. So what do you think will happen in midterms, Jasmine? Because soon I'll have to call you Congresswoman. I'll call you Jasmine as long as I can. What do you think is going to happen with this? Like, will these bullhorn racist attack ads, Willie Horton 2.0 type things work? Because quite honestly, there have been a spike in homicides that has nothing to do with Democratic policies, of course, and certainly Mandela Barnes is not responsible for any such thing. But will that work with the Republican voter base?
You know, I absolutely think that there's a possibility. I mean, we see Republicans consistently go after fear instead of going after facts, right? The reality is that he's running against an incumbent. So if I'm an incumbent, when I'm going to go out and I'm going to tell you about my record, I'm going to tell you how I have made your life better. But he can't speak to that. So all that he can do is attack. And we have seen that the polls are tightening. You know, it's the misinformation that really frustrates me as somebody that actually practices criminal defense as well. Ron Johnson knows that we're not the ones that are dealing with the local police. That's not what we do on the federal level. And I know that there's been a lot of talk in Wisconsin about Mandela at some point in saying defund the police. And there's always these attacks and they're saying, hey, whatever y'all do when y'all run, don't say it. But the reality is that if it hadn't been said, we wouldn't still be talking about it.
Right.
It was so provocative. But to be clear, Black people want law enforcement in their communities. When they call 911, they want them to show up. And a lot of times it's the Black communities where they're not showing up. And one of the reasons they may not be showing up is because they don't look at those as priority calls, and they're having to prioritize their calls because law enforcement is playing dog catcher. Law enforcement is playing social worker. And so they're not wanting to talk about what defund was about, which it was always about making sure it was actually supporting law enforcement. Because when they signed up to protect and serve, not to do all these other jobs. And so it was about efficiency. But
defund the police isn't a Democratic political policy. And it really is a reallocation of funds. So when you say Black people want law enforcement, yes, but they also don't want to call law enforcement and then become a victim of law enforcement. I think that's a good point.
That's absolutely right.
Absolutely. So, I saw a piece. I don't remember where it was that I saw it, but it was on one of these talk shows. And the question was asked is, I think I played that for you guys a few days ago. It was a governor from California, Newsom. Newsom said, how can you possibly allow Republicans to have the crime issue as a positive for them? When most red states are that all 8 out of 10 red states, crime rate is higher. All red states have gun violence higher than they are in blue states. And worse, more rapes occur in Texas than rapes occur in California. California having a hell of a higher population than Texas, yet there are more rapes. And when you throw guns in the streets, you get all this wild, wild west type of gun violence created by the laws passed by Gregory Abbott. Greg Abbott is responsible for the crime rate, period. Repeat, Greg Abbott is responsible for the crime rates, period. Okay, so let's get that straight right now. We should not make this an issue that somehow Republicans can run on. Mike, Eric Hayes like to say red states, blue cities. No, it's red state. The buck stops with the governor of that state. If we're looking at the state, we don't say, hey, if that state is voting red and some reason crime rate is still high, that is a responsibility. As you would always say, don't get away from your responsibility, Eric. So they need to hold responsibility. Red states are states where there's more crime. There are more crime because of the policies within those red states. A bunch of guns, rape, all that good stuff that's tolerated. Let's be clear here. Let's be clear. Red states are bigger states as well. And I live in a red states, folks. We take more from the federal government than we put in. Our kids are less educated because our leaders, the Republican leaders, don't believe in education. We can go item after item after item, but they want to keep a population uneducated. That's their goal. An uneducated population can be fooled. An uneducated population can be lied to. An uneducated population is dangerous to their own being. And until we start to realize these issues, folks, not much changes. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.